I've never played a Gen 7 Pokemon game. I know what you're thinking, but we're here to rectify that. Now of course, I know that Gen 7 means Pokemon Sun, Moon and their Ultra variants, but because I've never played any of them, I chose to play the vanilla version, opting to keep the Ultras for later. It then came down to a coin flip between Sun and Moon, and I ultimately chose Sun. Before we begin our run, we need to establish the rules. First off, my partner Pokemon will be Grovyle. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but for those of you who are new to the channel, Grovyle has been my favorite Pokemon for a very long time, so it goes without saying that I share a past with it. With that said, you can pretty much guess that I'm never evolving Grovyle. This run will be a Grass-type only kind of run, but this rule has two parts. I can only catch Grass-type Pokemon, obviously, but I can only catch Pokemon that have Grass-type as their first type. I managed to keep myself spoiler-free for years, but I did have to do a little bit of research to know which Pokemon would be available for me to catch during the game. And while there were a few, we won't be able to catch some of them because Grass isn't their first type. No spoilers for what the team is going to be just yet, but we'll get there eventually. Speaking of team, the maximum number of Pokemon I can have is 6. That means that even if I run into some other Grass-type Pokemon, and spoiler, I will, I won't be able to use them. Another rule I want to add to this run is no items in battle. Yes, it's my first playthrough, but I do want this to be a challenge. I got a request from a friend of mine saying that I shouldn't use Pokepalago. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I intended to keep it that way. Lastly, and this one came naturally as I was playing, I am allowing myself to use Pokemon Refresh. There's no way I'm going to pass up on the opportunity to pat Grovyle, but I will learn later in the game that, well, friendship power is kinda strong. But with this, we're almost set to go. I have one last thing to mention before we begin our run. At this current point in time, only 5.8% of people watching my videos are currently subscribed to the channel. So what I'd like to ask of you, if you do like my content, I would love if you consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. With all of that said, we're now finally set to go. So grab your favorite snack, get yourself something to drink, strap your seatbelts, and let's ride. We begin our save file with a message from a certain Professor Kukui. After choosing our face and naming ourselves Aiden, the call ends as someone calls for us. The game then transitions to a scene where a girl is running away from some sort of facility with something in her bag. That something then activates some sort of power and teleports the both of them out of there. Begins Pokemon Sun. After Aiden wakes up, we head out of the bedroom, talk to our mom, and Professor Kukui shows up. We learn from this conversation that we come all the way from the Kanto region. It's kind of ironic, my last adventure was also in Kanto. Professor Kukui then tells us it's high time to rush to Iki Town, so we can get our first Pokemon from the island Kahuna. In this instance, I chose to ask what a Kahuna is, because although I've heard that term for years now, I've never actually known what that stood for. And they're basically the mayors of an entire island, for lack of a better term. Kukui also mentions that Kahunas are crazy strong, and we will learn how strong soon enough. But for now, we leave our house and go to Iki Town. Kukui mentions something about this island being a paradise, and I have to agree. The scenery looks beautiful, the island is surrounded by the sea, which obviously makes sense, and the music is just beautiful. 10 minutes into the game and I'm loving it. As we reach Iki Town, Kukui tells us about Tapu Koko, and there's something I'd like to mention. The fact that I have kept myself spoiler-free for years doesn't mean I don't know my Pokemon, so of course I knew what the Tapus were before I played the game. We then come across the same girl we saw earlier, and after briefly chasing her, we come to a bridge where a Cosmog comes out of her bag. But as it does so, a small flock of Spearows starts swooping in to attack it. The girl then asks us to save Cosmog, or Nebby, and as soon as we cover it, the Spearow's relentless assault causes Cosmog to release a burst of power, destroying the bridge and making us fall. Thankfully, Tapu Koko comes in and saves the day. I'm gonna be honest, I've never really liked the Tapus. But this scene right here almost makes me change my mind, and I'm only at the start of the game. Koko then flies away, and as we're talking to the girl, Cosmog finds something on the ground. We ask who the girl is, but we get no answer. We do get the sparkling stone that Cosmog just found. After escorting her back to town, Kukui calls for us. He says we missed the Kahuna, but we found his assistant. The girl finally introduces herself as Lily, and as we're getting acquainted to each other, the Kahuna finally comes back. His name's Hala, and people are calling him one of the best Pokemon users in all of Alola. At this point I'm already 100% sure I'm going to have to battle this guy at one point or another. Hala comes up to us, and I noticed something. The whole point of going to Iki Town was to get a Pokemon. But then Lily starts explaining what happened at the bridge, and Hala says it's cause for celebration, and because of this, he should give me a Pokemon. I don't know if we're on the same page here, but I was already supposed to get a Pokemon, so if I've done or seen something that should be cause for celebration, why not just give me 2 Pokemon instead of 1? But moving on. Hala then sends out the 3 starter Pokemon, and asks us to choose one of them. When I saw them, I thought I had messed up, because the Grass-type Pokemon should have been Grovyle. But no, the game is just programmed to display the 3 starter Pokemon. Let's just say that Grovyle disguised itself as a Rowlet so it could blend in and I could choose it. You'll also notice that the second option is Marshtomp. The idea behind this was to pick Combusken, because it would be a good rival for Grovyle. But not only did I not pick Combusken, I later learned that the rival isn't very smart. I still carry on despite this mistake. I'm sure I'm going to have my fair share of issues throughout the game, so adding one or taking one away isn't going to make much of a difference. After picking up my Rowlet-shaped Grovyle, I name it after myself and carry on. We have successfully deceived everyone, as Kukui hands us the Pokédex and tells us that Rowlet is already registered. We're told to go home and tell our mom about Grovyle, but as soon as we leave town, we are interrupted by Hao, aka our rival. He shows up and asks us for a battle. And this is where I learned that Hao isn't very smart. He chose Poplio, not Combusken, or Marshtomp, or whatever. You know what? It doesn't matter. What's done is done, I'm not redoing this. So the first battle of the run is here. Let's see how it goes. But before we talk about the battle, there's something I must address. I really like the intro to the battle, and this will become a recurring theme throughout the entirety of the game. The battle music sounds great, and the background scenery looks very good. I'm probably going to get bashed for this sooner or later, but I do genuinely believe that Pokemon games don't need to have crazy graphics to look good, and this game shows this exceptionally well. For a 3DS game, it looks really good. Okay, sure, I'm playing on an emulator, so the graphics are a little bit upscaled, but still, even on native graphics, this looks great for a 3DS game. But anyway, we do have we did have a battle to cover. So Grovyle comes with Absorb from the get-go, which is much more than I asked for. And just like that, Aiden 1, Hao 0. After the battle, Hala notices we have a Sparkling Stone and asks us if he can borrow it. We give it to him, then go home. As soon as we get there, it looks like Grovyle is still deceiving people. But that won't last forever. We'll soon reveal to the world who Rowlet truly is. The following day, Kukui re-enters our house completely uninvited. And in retrospective, I shouldn't really be saying this, given the ridiculous amount of houses we enter without even knocking. Kukui then asks us to go to Route 1, so we leave our house, and he delivers a line I never thought I'd hear in any Pokemon game ever. Pretend you're a Pokemon and use your agility. If you think this is the only time Kukui does this, nope. But we'll talk about this when the time comes. We get the traditional catching tutorial and we're given a couple Pokeballs and potions. And as I'm heading to Iki Town, I notice something. I battled a Caterpie in the wild grass, and about 2 minutes later, I battle a trainer that has one. And what I noticed was, if you battle a certain Pokemon, subsequent encounters will tell you what moves are effective or not against it. After mowing down everything that breathes, we successfully make our way to Iki Town, and it looks like we'll have to battle our rival once again. This is interesting. It looks like our mom already knows about Grovyle. So basically, before you get the ability to catch Pokemon, the name the NPCs call your Pokemon is the name of the starter you chose. But after you're given the Pokeballs by Kukui, the name NPCs will use for your Pokemon is the name of the first Pokemon in your party. Our second battle wasn't much different from the first one, and even though Hao now has a Pichu, it doesn't take me very long to defeat both of his Pokemon. After this battle, we're given a Z-Ring from Hala, which was crafted from the Sparkling Stone. Hala and Kukui then proceed to explain that we have to travel all 4 islands and complete 7 trials. And because we're an island boy in this game, we'll obviously accept the challenge. Once that's out of the way, we head back home, and just like that, it's morning. Someone came knocking at the door, but this time it's Lily that's waiting for us outside. It looks like Kukui has summoned us. In one of the battles that leads us to Kukui's house, we're introduced to Pokemon Refresh. In this mode, you're able to groom your Pokemon, feed it Pokebeans to increase its affection, and even cure status ailments. And of course, like I said at the start of the video, there was no way I wasn't going to pat Grovyle. We reach Kukui's house and we're introduced to Rotom, who's going to be living in our Pokédex from now on. Oh, and Kukui used another Pokemon move analogy. You'll see those from time to time. Hao comes along and Kukui explains to us how the Island Challenge works. We need to clear 7 trials and battle the 4 kahunas to be recognized as the Island Challenge champion. After giving Aiden a medal and telling him to go to the trainer school, we head to a Pokemon Center and Lily explains to us how it works. And I must say I really like how the healing screen looks. The coffee shop in the left corner is also pretty cool. Once a day, after you choose a drink, the man behind the counter will give you a regional sweet and some Pokebeans. Pokebeans help tremendously when you're trying to increase your Pokemon's affection. After reaching the school, we're given a task to battle 4 trainers. And an experience share? Cool! Well, I know that's gonna come in handy. And as I'm talking to the NPCs inside of the school, I also come across a Quick Claw, which I immediately give to Grovyle. It doesn't hurt to be faster than other Pokemon once in a while, even though Grovyle is already pretty quick on its feet. The 4 trainers around the school don't do anything too crazy, except for the last one. He has a Grimer and I defeat it with only 4 HP remaining. But for our trouble, we're given the TM for Workup. And a good thing about this game is that you can reuse TMs over and over, and that's also going to play a role in this run. After defeating the students, the instructor also challenges us for a battle. But thanks to Workup, we're easily able to dispatch both Magnemite and Meowth. Someone new appears, and he introduces himself as Ilima. Not only that, we learn that captains are the ones that hold the trials. We leave the school with Lily, and as we're walking, we see Hao and Hala next to a Tauros. After giving Tauros a gentle pat on the head, Hala goes on his way and we on ours. In this conversation, I get a little bit disappointed. Lily says that the next city we'll be visiting is the biggest one in all of Alola. And as I walk into the next scene, it's really underwhelming. Just thinking that the next towns and cities that we're going to be visiting are all going to be smaller than this is kinda sad actually. I just hope that there's going to be a bunch of stuff to do here. After this depressing thought, we enter a building with Hao, and because we have a Rotom Dex, we're given the Pokefinder. This is basically a camera for your Pokedex. It doesn't really have a major use in the game, other than hoarding likes with the pictures you take. In some spots in the game, you'll hear a sound and an icon on the Pokedex will appear, notifying you that you're at a photo spot. And this is actually kinda fun. It's a very basic minigame, but it does feel like a callback to Pokemon Snap, which I really liked. I think that if I wasn't doing this for a video, I might just stay here and take pictures of different Pokemon. We do end up leveling up the Pokefinder to level 2, but that's not why we're here. I do have one last observation about the Pokefinder though. Although it doesn't have a major use in the game, it will be mandatory for a small segment later on. But we'll get there when we get there. We meet Lily in front of a clothing store, and after a bit of talking, we're given a lens case. Don't ask me why, but I randomly decided to talk to this lady in front of the clothing store, and she gives me a silk scarf. Boosting normal type moves, don't mind if I do. I learned that giving Pokebeans to your Pokemon makes this guy give us rare candies, which I found to be pretty cool. As we leave the Poké Center to proceed, we pick up on a conversation and the term Team Skull makes its first appearance. On an unrelated note, we enter a big house. And why am I just able to lay down on a stranger's bed? Why does this guy automatically assume I'm his son's friend? Also, who is his son? How? Kukui? Ilima? I have so many unanswered questions right now. After a couple minutes, we meet Hao in front of some kind of pastry shop. And he says, and I quote, "Plus, malasadas make your Pokemon like you, and affectionate Pokemon are better in battle." Somehow, I completely overlooked this, and I only understood what malasadas did later in the game. And the funny thing is, I fed one to Grovyle right after Hao talked to me. So yeah, I'm kind of an idiot. After a couple minutes looking into every nook and cranny for hidden items, we reach the marina and Ilima's there. We're quickly interrupted by Team Skull grunts. And because Ilima ignores them a couple of times, we're forced to battle them. Thanks to the scarf, normal type moves are boosted and we easily win this battle. The grunts leave after the battle and we get a free heal, only to have Ilima challenge us himself. Our first captain battle begins and we start by using Workup 3 times in a row. And after defeating Yungoos with Absorb, we level up and learn Mega Drain. This causes us to one-shot Smeargle as it's sent out into battle. I have to say, this battle was, well, disappointing. After our victory, Ilima tells us to go to the Verdant Cavern in Route 2 to take on his trial. I was assuming that the captain battle was the trial itself, but it seems I was wrong. As we're leaving the city, we get another scene with Lily. She talks about Nebi and Tapu Koko, but also about the Island Challenge. And with her words of encouragement, we finally head into Route 2. But first, another pat on Taurus's head. Can I just say that Hala is actually kinda chill for a guy that I assume has a great responsibility? Anyway, as soon as we enter Route 2, we're introduced to rustling grass. Sometimes, as we enter a patch of grass, a Pokemon will just run up to us to battle. As we make our way through Route 2 and the Hau'oli Cemetery, we make sure to battle all trainers we set our sights on. Of course, we don't want to overlevel, but we still only have one Pokemon, and we don't know when the next one is going to come up, so we do need to exercise some caution. We come up to a house next to a motel, and of course, we can just lay down on another stranger's bed. But keep this house in mind, as it will be important for something much later. As we're proceeding, a Delibird stops us and pulls us by the bag, seemingly asking for help. And it looks like Team Skull is up to no good again. Another quick battle against the grunts and they both run away. The man we help out tells us that we can pick any berry we find, as these grow like weeds all over Alola. But let me tell you, as a small spoiler, we will never ever use a single berry throughout the entirety of the game. Yep. One of the trainers we come across finally sends out a grass-type Pokemon, a Cottony. So of course I open up the Pokédex to check out where I might catch one, and it looks like we're not very far away. Let's just hope that we don't hit a wall before we can catch it. A couple more battles later and we finally reach another Pokécenter and Hau is waiting in front of it. Hau needs to recover his Pokemon and we're already being given revives. This is the game that keeps on giving. And I don't know, I had a feeling. Either this game was going to go beautifully well, or I was eventually going to hit a heck of a wall. We go out and battle the remaining trainers I left behind. Once we're done with that, we head right from the Pokécenter and the entrance for the Verdant Cavern is right there. Ilima waits for us outside and warns us we should bring some potions. But we'll be fine. We head inside and Ilima's there to give us our task. We're supposed to defeat 3 Pokemon in here, then proceed onward and get a Z Crystal. This doesn't seem very bad, given that Yungoos is actually kinda weak. But wait, there's more! Ilima tells us at the last second that a stronger Pokemon, called a Totem Pokemon, lives deep inside the cavern. Not only that, but we're unable to catch any other Pokemon in here, which is actually fine, since we're only looking for Grass-type Pokemon anyway, and I really doubt Cottony would live here. And so our first trial begins. I'm not going into too many details here, but the premise of the trial is this. We need to approach these holes and interact with them. Then we battle the Pokemon that's inside and we can proceed. The first one is pretty straightforward, as interacting with the hole will make the Pokemon appear and we can defeat it. The second one isn't much different, but this one comes out of the hole on its own and comes to us, just like Pokemon in Rustling Grass. We also find the TM for Brick Break in here. I don't think I need to say this, but Pokemon in here are all normal type. This move is Fighting type, so of course we're going to teach this to Grovyle. The third Pokemon keeps on playing with us, and as we've gone full circle, 2 Team Skull grunts interrupt us. And I like the small fourth wall breaking here. Kind of a nod to how grunts NPCs always have the same character model. Acknowledging we recognize them when they look the same is kind of a nod to how the grunts character models in other games all look the same and are all treated the same, with a few exceptions. Well, these 2 are the same ones we battled before, but we will eventually run into other grunts. I know I've said this before about Hau's battle, but I really think the intros are really well done. Intros from normal NPCs aren't really elaborate, but when it's a special battle, the intro just have something more special to it. I don't know, I guess I'm just a sucker for these things. And hey, would you look at that? I only had time to say 2 sentences and the battle is already over. What a shame. Can I just mention how creepy this looks? You can tell the grunt is just staring into your soul. For some reason, after the battle, each one of them stands in front of one of the holes and I'm free to go battle the third Pokemon, Gumshoos. And with this battle done, we're finally able to go to the Totem's Den. We reach for the pedestal and a cutscene starts, revealing yet another Gumshoos. I'm guessing this is a Totem Pokemon, since we are in its den, and the game confirms this to me. Our first Totem battle now begins. Ah, and there it is. So a Totem Pokemon will have a special buff applied to it at the start of a battle. I'm also guessing they'll have increased HP. Well, as you might have guessed already, this battle wasn't overly difficult. The fact Gumshoos is a normal type Pokemon makes it very weak against Brick Break. Unfortunately, there's yet another gimmick to these battles, and it's the fact that Totem Pokemon will call for help from other Pokemon. Despite this, I'm still able to defeat Gumshoes with 3 hits, and then one-shot Young Goose with Mega Drain to recover. And just like that, our first trial is done. I know I repeat myself often, but I really like these small cutscenes. Look how clean the crystal looks. These animations look so fluid. So, the Normalium Z is now ours, and we can make our way out of this cave. But first, Ilima quickly teaches us the Macarena, gives us Great Balls, and asks us to go to Route 3. And alas, my friends, this is where we'll stop for part 1. At the time I was writing the script, I noticed it would take way too long to go through the entire story. Maybe actually longer than the Magikarp video. And for that reason, I decided at the last minute that I would split it into parts. But don't worry though, the whole game has already been recorded, so the parts will be coming out at a reasonable speed. It's only a matter of writing the entire script and editing. But with all of this said, I will see you guys on the next video. My name's Grovyle. Thanks for watching.